You know how people talk about having psychic abilities or that they're seeing something and you're just curious as to what exactly that looks like? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain to you some of the psychic experiences I've had related to visions. Seeing psychically is called clairvoyance. So I know a lot of people, when they think having visions and being able to see things, that means that you think that people are seeing ghosts and spirits walk around, but that's not always the case. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things that I've seen over the years and kind of talk through what those things look like. So sometimes you just get visual kind of like flashes, and so one of the things that I would get was kind of like a green dress, and I found out later that that was one of my spirit guides, that she was wearing a green cloak. So that was very interesting. I saw that right before I did a psychic reading with somebody and they told me what she was wearing. But I kept on getting an impression, and it's kind of hard to say, but it's like a vision, but then I wasn't getting the whole thing. I was just kind of getting like this long green, it looked like a dress to me, but I wasn't seeing the face or anything. Also, one of the interesting things is if you are connected to somebody who is also psychic, if they are thinking a lot about you, then you may just see their face. So I've had that happen before where I'm going to sleep at night and I see this person's face. So that's how I can tell, like, okay, I guess they're thinking about me. It usually happens with people that are psychic. So you're just kind of tuning in to the fact that they're thinking about you. Another thing that I see a lot is geometric patterns, and I've also seen like a grid collapsing. So I see a lot of, I think probably the majority of the things that I see are when I'm just waking up and I start to have like these visions go through my, my eyes are closed, but they're starting to appear. And they're patterns, usually. They're different ones. Sometimes they're complicated, sometimes they're pretty simple, sometimes they flash, but I see a lot of that when I'm waking up. One of the first things that I started seeing when my third eye opened was dark shadows. And so those are basically just negative entities, and they can be from very small little shadows to larger ones. And you usually just see them out of the corner of your eye because you can see into other dimensions through the side of your eye. But I do see them sometimes in front of me. It just depends. But that's just one dimension above you, and that's just kind of like their thought forms. They can be more complex, like demonic entities. I haven't seen those, but I've experienced them and I've heard them, but they were behind me, so I didn't see them, luckily. The clearest psychic vision that I had was totally mind-blowing, and it was right after I got back from Bimini, and I had also been with Max or Crystal Skull, so it's kind of hard to say what triggered this, but I was in my bedroom, and all of a sudden this scene completely opened up, and it was like I was right there back at Bimini. I was seeing the ocean, I was seeing the trees, and what was so crazy about it, it just kind of appeared like this mirage. And whenever I would physically turn my head, I would see more of the scene. And for the longest time, I did not know what that was called, but I think it's called psychic bleed through. But at the time, I was sitting here like trying to understand, like, am I seeing through somebody's eyes right now? Or was this a past life that I was just somehow accessing? It was totally wild. Other times I have gotten impressions, so I'm not necessarily like having a vision, but it's more just an impression of somebody. So several times I've woken up and there's been like a ghost in the bed. That doesn't really happen that often, but it's happened before when I'm traveling, and I think one other time here in my house. But somehow I was getting the impression of somebody that was in the army and they were wearing a specific type of hat. Other things I've seen are white flashes of light, and these can vary. I've seen like little bitty sparkles in the sky, and I think I learned that that is actually called air prana. So you are seeing the energy in the sky. Sometimes people see them in trees and in the woods. Another visual thing that I've seen are these huge flashes of white light. You see that when your third eye is firing open. Another crazy thing that I've seen that I haven't heard anybody else talk about is there was a person that I would say they are probably from the dark side, not a light worker, and I saw like black heat waves or smoke coming out of their eyes. It was really weird, and I don't know. Occasionally I will see colors like aura. I have seen my own aura. It looks kind of cobalt blue. It's usually just a random thing that I'm, kind of my eyes are zoning out and I'll just see like this blue around my fingers or my feet. And probably the only time I've actually seen a being was in the astral realm. I mean, I have seen things, but this was the only actual being that I've seen, and it's in the hypnagogic state when you're accessing the realm just above us. And it was, I think these are called egregores, but it was like a person sitting in the middle of my bed, and it was utterly terrifying. But that was probably one of the worst experiences I've had, and yeah, that was creepy. Anyway, just wanted to share some of the clairvoyant things that I see. Anyway, if you have any questions on anything that you see or anything I've talked about, just leave me a comment.